I'm Natalie, 34, and I used to believe that nothing mattered more than blood ties. That belief shattered last Christmas when my own sister manipulated our parents into leaving me out of our annual winter getaway. When I finally asserted myself, they labeled me the problem. Ever felt like loyalty is a one-way street in your family? Then this story might hit home. Stick around as I share how I found my courage after being blindsided by the very people I trusted most. And while you're here, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. If you've ever faced holiday chaos courtesy of your own relatives, you're not alone. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true stories that just might help. You reclaim your voice. Let's rewind to where it all started. I was raised to believe that family always comes before everything else. My parents, Eleanor and Robert, raised my younger sister, Vanessa, and me with rituals that made us feel connected: holiday meals, shared milestones, and Sunday dinners filled with laughter. At least, that's how it seemed. Today, I'm a 34-year-old IT project manager. I've worked tirelessly to reach where I am. After earning my computer science degree, I took every hard project thrown my way, worked late nights, and earned enough to purchase my first home, a lovely 3-bedroom property with a spacious basement I renovated into a warm and inviting hangout spot. When Vanessa, 29, and her new husband Trevor tied the knot last year, they were navigating a rough financial patch. Trevor had just landed an entry-level marketing job, and Vanessa had stepped away from her dental assistant role. They told everyone they were trying to save for a down payment. Wanting to be helpful, I offered them my extra room and the finished lower level for a heavily reduced rent. Just for a few months, I figured. You can stay while you get things sorted, I told them earnestly. That's what family's for. Vanessa threw her arms around me. Nat, you're the best. We'll be out before you know it. Fast forward 11 months, and not only were they still living there, they acted like the place belonged to them. Trevor, in particular, had no boundaries. He left clutter in every room, threw parties without asking, and used my high-end kitchen appliances like they were his. Hey, Trevor, could you check with me before using the mixer? I asked gently after finding it coated in crusted batter. He scoffed. Seriously? We're family. Chill out. I brushed off the irritation. After all, wasn't helping them the right thing to do? Meanwhile, I kept grinding at work, pulling in bonuses that, ironically, were helping support their lifestyle. New clothes, fine dining, day trips, all while rent barely covered utilities. My best friend Maya raised the red flag during coffee one afternoon. Natalie, they're using you. You're practically their safety net while they live it up. When's the last time they even thanked you? I laughed it off. Their family, Maya. If I needed help, they'd do the same. December rolled in, and with it came excitement for our beloved Christmas tradition, a week-long family retreat in a snowy Vermont cabin. Cozy fires, matching pajamas, and board games by the tree. I'd already cleared my schedule at work and planned a menu of comfort food favorites. I even picked out adorable matching sweaters for Vanessa and Trevor as a surprise, but what I didn't realize was that this year's celebration was already underway, and I wasn't invited. One ordinary Tuesday in early December, I got home earlier than usual. A meeting had been called off, giving me a rare moment of peace. As I entered, I overheard laughter and chatter from the kitchen. Mom said the resort has hot tubs in every suite, Vanessa gushed. And there's a spa right by the slopes. That's so much better than that cramped cabin, Trevor agreed. This trip's going to be amazing. I froze. What resort? What spa? That's when I knew they were planning something big, and I was the only one out of the loop. I'm glad your folks finally decided to upgrade this year. Those words, floating from the kitchen, made me stop cold in the hallway. Resort? Spa? This wasn't adding up. It didn't sound anything like our usual snowy cabin getaway in Vermont. Vanessa's voice softened. I do feel a little bad about Natalie, but she'll manage. She's always working through the holidays anyway. My stomach dropped. Were they seriously discussing the Christmas trip? The one we'd done for nearly a decade as a tradition? The one I had already taken time off work for? Without thinking, I stepped into the kitchen, my presence halting their conversation mid-sentence. What resort? I asked, my voice calm despite the storm rising inside me. Both of them turned abruptly. Trevor looked like he'd been caught stealing. Vanessa blinked, wide-eyed. Natalie, you're home early, she said, her voice uneven. I kept my tone steady. What resort are you two talking about? They hesitated. Trevor rolled his eyes. We might as well tell her. Vanessa bit her lip. We're going to Colorado instead of Vermont this year. It's a 5-star place, ski in, ski out, all the bells and whistles. Mom and Dad booked it weeks ago. And when was anyone going to mention this? I asked, each word carefully measured. Vanessa looked away. Well, we kind of assumed. Maybe this wasn't the best year for you to come. I blinked. Why wouldn't I go? I already arranged time off and even bought your matching sweaters. What made you think I wasn't joining? Trevor leaned against the counter, clearly irritated. Just tell her, Vanessa. Vanessa sighed and finally admitted it. I brought it up to Mom and Dad. I said maybe it should just be us for this year. You always have to plan everything and, honestly, it feels like you're just trying to show off sometimes. That hit me like a punch. Show off? I organize those trips because no one else bothers to. And what exactly do I brag about? Trevor jumped in, voice dripping with sarcasm. You never stop talking about your job, your wins, your salary, your promotions. It's exhausting. Some of us don't want a lecture on project management. Over eggnog. I felt like the floor had dropped from beneath me. I barely spoke about my career unless someone asked. The activities I organized were things they enjoyed: sledding, movie nights, gingerbread baking. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate, twisted narrative. With hands trembling, I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother. She answered after 3 rings. Hi, Mom, I began, forcing myself to sound composed. I just heard about the trip to Colorado. There was a pause. Then, oh, Natalie. Yes, we were going to tell you. When, exactly? We were planning to bring it up on Christmas morning. That did it. You mean, while you were already at the resort? Don't be overly sensitive, sweetheart, she said with a sigh. We just figured, with how tied up you are at work, you might appreciate a quiet holiday this year. I swallowed hard. Did Vanessa recommend leaving me out? Silence. Then, she mentioned that maybe you needed space. And honestly, you do tend to take control of the planning. We thought a little change would be refreshing for everyone. There it was. My own mother confirming what I feared. They had made the decision behind my back. Not only had they conspired to exclude me, they justified it using my commitment and contributions as the reason. So, you all decided this without asking how I felt? I asked, voice hollow. Natalie, don't turn this into something it's not, my mother replied, exasperated. You're always swamped. This could be your chance to unwind. You could catch up on your workload. I ended the call without another word. Turning back to Trevor and Vanessa, I stared at them. Neither looked particularly ashamed. If anything, Trevor seemed smug. Vanessa glanced away, unable to meet my eyes. How long has this been in motion? I demanded. Vanessa mumbled, since October. Mom found the place early in the fall. 2 months. 2 entire months of secret discussions and arrangements while I'd been excitedly making plans, even imagining what meals I'd prepare for them. All along, they were plotting to leave me out. I retreated to my bedroom, shut the door behind me, and collapsed on the bed. Tears streamed down my face as I tried to make sense of what had just happened. When I finally mustered the strength, I called Maya. They left me out, I choked through sobs. They actually planned a new Christmas without me and didn't say a word. Her gasp was immediate. Are you serious? After everything you've done, especially letting them live in your home practically free. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I can't stop thinking about all the years I made sure everyone was happy, every trip planned down to the last detail so they'd have fun. And now this. Maya didn't hold back. That's beyond hurtful. That's cruel. You've been nothing but generous. I couldn't find the words, but in that moment, her outrage gave me something I hadn't felt all day: validation. Just last December, I'd even gone out of my way to adjust our dinner reservations last minute because Trevor had a craving for some new restaurant downtown. Natalie, you've been bending over backward for them for years, Maya said softly, placing her hand over mine. They count on your generosity because you never push back. Maybe it's time to stop putting yourself last. Her words echoed in my mind long after the call ended. That night, lying in bed and staring at the dim ceiling fan spinning above, I finally acknowledged the deeper truth. This wasn't just a ruined vacation. It was a culmination of countless compromises, years of giving, all taken for granted. And now, I was left wondering, what should I do about it? The following morning, I rolled out of bed still weighed down by the heaviness of betrayal. My eyes were puffy from lack of rest. I felt emotionally wrung out, like I had lived through a breakup. Half of me wanted to scream. The other half wanted to believe there was still a misunderstanding at the root of all this. Had I unintentionally been difficult? Maybe my enthusiasm for planning had come off the wrong way. Determined to gain clarity, I sought out Vanessa before heading to work. She was in the kitchen, relaxed, thumbing through her phone while sipping from my favorite mug, the one that read, World's Best Sister. The irony made my stomach churn. Vanessa, can we talk about yesterday? I asked, keeping my tone as even as I could while pouring coffee. She looked up, clearly uneasy. Yeah, sure. I took a breath. I'm trying to wrap my head around why you went to Mom and Dad about excluding me from the holiday. If I've done something wrong, I'd rather we talk it through than have you make decisions behind my back. With a theatrical sigh, she set her phone down. It's not just one thing, Natalie. It's everything. You always have to be front and center. You own a house, you have that glamorous job. And when we're all together, it always feels like your way or nothing. That's not fair, I replied. I only ever organize events so everyone has something to enjoy. I never thought I was being bossy. That's how it feels, she said sharply. Do you know what it's like being your younger sister? Every holiday, every dinner, it's always, why can't you be more like Natalie? Natalie just got another raise. Natalie's so responsible. It's exhausting. Her words left me stunned. I didn't realize you felt overshadowed. But leaving me out of Christmas isn't a solution. It's hurtful. Right then, Trevor walked in, immediately catching the tension. What's happening? He asked, grabbing an orange from the fruit bowl. She's upset about Colorado, Vanessa told him without missing a beat. Trevor scoffed, rolling his eyes. Seriously? You're making a scene over one holiday? That's ridiculous. My voice wavered but I stayed composed. It's not about just this year. It's about feeling intentionally pushed out by the people I thought I could count on. Trying to salvage something from the wreckage, I offered, what if I only came for a couple of days? That way you all have space, and I'm still part of the celebration. Vanessa hesitated, looking at Trevor. He subtly shook his head. I don't think that would work, she said quickly. The resort's fully booked now anyway. There's no space left. I didn't believe that for a second, but before I could challenge her, my phone lit up. It was my mother. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe she'd say this whole thing was a misunderstanding. Natalie, your father and I have been discussing this, she began before I could even say hello. We really feel you're making too much of this. Vanessa said you guilt-tripped her this morning. I closed my eyes, letting out a breath. Mom, I just asked for an honest conversation. I wanted to understand why I was left out. She sighed heavily. This is the issue, honey. You always assume things should go your way. Maybe this is a good opportunity to learn that the world doesn't revolve around your preferences. But planning a vacation without me, without even asking, how is that okay? I asked, my voice trembling. We're not cutting you out, she insisted. We just thought it might be refreshing to do something different for once. Your father believes some solitude could benefit you. I looked over at the bookshelf where his photo sat. He hadn't even reached out. Not a message. Not a call. Just silent agreement. He'd always been non-confrontational, letting my mother speak for both of them. But this time, it felt like more than avoidance, it felt like abandonment. When the call ended, I turned back to Vanessa. I just found out you've all been keeping this plan from me since October, I said, my voice thin with disbelief. If there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, then why hide it? Vanessa's eyes darted to the floor. For a split second, shame flickered across her face. We just knew you'd make a big thing out of it. You mean like I am now? I asked quietly, feeling the full weight of her betrayal settle into my bones. Oh, like you're not doing that right now? Trevor chimed in, eyes still glued to his screen, thumbs moving across it lazily. I was about to speak when my attention shifted to a pile of unopened mail on the marble countertop. One envelope lay half open, revealing a recent bank statement with Vanessa's name on it. A particular transaction caught my eye, over $600 charged to a luxury sporting goods store. Is that for snow equipment? I asked, pointing to the bill. Vanessa's reaction was immediate. She scrambled to gather the papers, shielding them from my gaze. That's none of your concern, she snapped. You used the money you were supposed to pay in rent to buy gear for a trip you deliberately excluded me from. I asked, the full picture finally taking shape. We needed the right apparel, Trevor said with a shrug. Besides, it's not like you're struggling to keep up with expenses. That sentence pierced deeper than they could ever understand. It wasn't about finances, it was about being seen, appreciated, valued. In that moment, I realized I was simply a means to their comfort, not someone they genuinely cared about. I think it's time we have a real discussion about whether you two should keep living here, I said calmly, every word measured. But not now, I have to head into the office. As I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door, Trevor muttered, she always finds a way to turn everything into a lecture about money. But it wasn't about money. It was about principle, kindness, and decency. None of which seemed to matter in this house anymore. Roughly 2 weeks before Christmas, I returned home from a grueling day of back-to-back meetings. Our department was scrambling to finish a high-stakes rollout before the holiday, and my brain felt like it had been through a blender. I just wanted quiet. Instead, my driveway was jammed with unfamiliar vehicles. Alarm bells rang in my head. Soon as I opened the door, a wave of laughter, upbeat music, and cinnamon-spiced wine hit me. That scent, mulled wine, was a nostalgic staple of our winter celebrations. Confused, I stepped inside and found my entire living room packed. String lights twinkled, garland framed the windows, and a huge banner stretched across the fireplace. Colorado bound, there stood my mother, several relatives, and longtime family friends, hosting what was clearly a festive send-off for the ski vacation I wasn't even invited to. Vanessa's eyes widened when she noticed me, but she quickly rearranged her face into a smile. Oh, hey, you're back. Earlier than we thought. I scanned the crowd. Can someone explain what's happening? Trevor raised a glass, of what I immediately recognized as the single malt I'd been saving. Just a small celebration to get everyone pumped for the trip. My mother approached, attempting an awkward embrace. Sweetheart, we were going to tidy everything up before you got home. We know how particular you are. I looked around at all the faces avoiding mine. Shame wasn't present. Just discomfort at having been caught. So, every single person here knew I wasn't invited? I asked, my voice slicing through the chatter like a blade. The room went quiet. Cousin Amber's cheeks turned pink. We thought work wouldn't allow you to come, she offered hesitantly. That's what we were told, Uncle Paul added, casting a side glance toward my mother. Just then, I overheard Vanessa whispering to our cousin Grace in the far corner, oblivious to my presence. Honestly, it's kind of a relief she's not coming. All she ever talks about is her job. She plans everything down to the minute. It's exhausting. These cabin trips were always so rigid with her around. Her words sliced through me like frostbite. So that's how my own sister truly viewed me. Not as someone who kept the traditions alive, who organized with care, who gave them a place to stay, but as a cold, lifeless machine without fun or spontaneity. As I stood frozen, trying to swallow that cruelty, I noticed Trevor inside my private office, my sanctuary, the one space I had explicitly labeled off limits. He was seated beside my father, showing him something on my personal computer. And worse, a deep crimson stain spread across the white carpet I'd spent weeks hunting down. Red wine, Trevor. I snapped. My composure shattered. What are you doing in there? That space isn't for you. He looked up, annoyed at the interruption. Chill. I was just showing your dad some photos of the resort. What's the big deal? The big deal is that you're in my office, touching my computer, and now there's wine all over my carpet. It's just a rug, he muttered dismissively. We'll clean it. Stop being dramatic. And that was it. Every moment of being overlooked, every instance of being treated like a doormat, every condescending remark, every boundary crossed, it all came to a head. Everyone needs to leave, I said firmly, the calm in my voice belying the storm beneath. Now. My mother looked scandalized, clearly embarrassed. Natalie, don't be foolish. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Am I? My voice trembled but rose. You all organized a family getaway behind my back. Lied about it. And now you're throwing a party in my home to celebrate, using my food, my liquor, my decorations. And I'm the unreasonable one? Vanessa turned to the group, gesturing in my direction. See? This is exactly why we thought a break would be nice. Oh, here we go again. Everything has to orbit around Natalie, Trevor muttered, not even glancing up. Throwing a tantrum because, for once, she's not getting attention. I scanned the room, hoping someone, anyone, might step in, might say something. But instead, all I saw were averted eyes, people suddenly fascinated by their shoes, their drinks, or the decorations. Not one voice rose to challenge the cruelty being thrown at me. In that silence, memories rushed back like waves. The times I had changed my plans to help my parents relocate. The vacations I'd postponed with Maya to accommodate family events. The countless sacrifices I had made, not for recognition, but out of love. And yet, here I was, discarded like an afterthought. I want everyone out within 10 minutes, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. And as for you two, I turned to Vanessa and Trevor, we need to reevaluate your situation here. This arrangement isn't sustainable anymore. You can't just throw us out. Vanessa gasped. Where are we supposed to stay? I'm not forcing you out tonight, I clarified. But changes are happening, and they're happening soon. Now, please ask everyone to leave. There were murmurs, awkward shuffles, a general movement toward the door. As jackets were retrieved and awkward goodbyes were muttered, I overheard my mother whisper to my aunt, she's always been overly sensitive. She'll get over it by tomorrow. But I knew better. This wasn't one of those times I'd cry quietly and let it slide. A switch had flipped. The fog had lifted. I saw things clearly now. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was systemic disregard. And I wasn't going to tolerate it anymore. Later that night, the quiet in the house was oppressive. I sat on the edge of my couch, still surrounded by the remnants of a gathering I hadn't been invited to. The rug was stained, the coffee table sticky with wine rings, and crumbs were embedded in the fabric of my favorite cushions. My sanctuary had been violated. I picked up a photo frame from the bookshelf, a snapshot from the previous Christmas. We were all smiling in front of the cabin fireplace. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if even that moment had been as genuine as it seemed. Tears rolled down my cheeks. That's when I decided I was done being taken for granted. I didn't know how it would unfold, but I would no longer stand quietly in the shadows of their entitlement. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in over 5 years. I called in sick. I needed the day. Not for illness, but for clarity. I spent the early hours scrubbing the wine stain from the carpet in my home office, but it had already set. Like the damage to my trust, deep, dark, and permanent. By late morning, I messaged Maya. Without hesitation, she replied, on my way. Bringing food and support. When she arrived, she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Ethan, her boyfriend, who happened to be a real estate attorney. I hope it's okay I brought Ethan, Maya said, carrying bags of Thai takeout. I thought you might want legal backup. Ethan offered a warm, understanding nod. She told me what happened. I'm really sorry you're going through this. As we ate, I spilled everything: the hidden vacation, the wine-stained carpet, the snide remarks, the party in my living room. All of it. I don't know what to do, I admitted. I want them out. But I'm not trying to be cruel, either. They're still family. Setting boundaries isn't heartless, Maya replied. It's healthy. You've been nothing but generous. And they've walked all over you. Ethan nodded. Legally speaking, even though they're paying below market rent, that still qualifies them as tenants. You can't just change the locks, but you can initiate formal removal. My stomach clenched. What does that involve? Well, he began, since there's no written lease, they're considered month-to-month residents. In this state, you're required to give them 30 days notice in writing. You don't have to justify it, just document it. And if they refuse to go? Then you'd file for eviction through the courts. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. We spent the next hour drafting the notice. It was direct, clear, and legally sound. I gave them until January 15th, well after the holidays, to pack up and leave. More time than they deserved, but I didn't want to stoop to their level. Still, the thought of sharing my home with them for another month made my skin crawl. What do I do until then? I asked. The tension's unbearable. Maya exchanged a glance with Ethan. Didn't they say they'd be out all day tomorrow for pre-trip shopping? I nodded. Yeah. They left early this morning. Said they were spending the whole day picking up supplies. Perfect, she said, eyes twinkling. With a plan forming, Maya leaned in, her eyes locked on mine with urgency. Here's what I suggest. Her strategy was clear-cut yet unflinching. While Vanessa and Trevor were out shopping, I would have the locks changed and update the alarm system. I'd gather their day-to-day essentials, clothing, hygiene items, prescriptions, and pack them into labeled boxes. Those boxes would go on the front porch, under the awning. Taped to the top would be a printed notice giving them 30 days to retrieve their remaining belongings and secure alternate housing. It feels extreme, I admitted, though deep down, I knew it wasn't. If you were being extreme, you'd toss everything onto the lawn and post a video online, Maya replied, half joking but deadly serious. This is controlled, thoughtful, necessary. Ethan added, just make sure you keep a record. Photograph everything before packing. Log the contents of each box. That way, they can't twist the truth later. The next morning, after double-checking that they'd left for their ski gear run, I called a locksmith. He arrived promptly and swapped out every entry lock. I then reprogrammed the security panel with a fresh code. Only I knew the tougher part followed, deciding what to pack. I chose outfits for a week, daily necessities, grooming products, and any prescriptions I found. With each item I folded. I snapped a picture, logged it on an inventory sheet, and placed it with care. I wasn't out for revenge, I was reclaiming my autonomy. Once the essentials were boxed up, I slid them onto the porch and covered them with a waterproof tarp, just in case. On top sat the typed notice, dated and signed, informing them they had until January 15th to relocate and collect everything. Else.as I sealed the final box. A cocktail of emotions hit me: relief, sadness, empowerment, and guilt. Was this really my life now? Was this what setting boundaries looked like? Around mid-afternoon, the inevitable happened. My phone lit up nonstop. Calls from my mother, father, and even my grandmother flooded in. Each one I let roll to voicemail. I wasn't ready, the voicemails were relentless. Natalie, what on earth have you done? My mother barked. Vanessa is beside herself. You need to call us right now. You're completely out of line, my father said in a clipped tone. We didn't raise you to behave like this. I braced myself and listened to Vanessa's tirade. I can't believe you locked us out, she screamed. This is beyond cruel. Trevor's talking about taking legal action. You'll regret this, Natalie. But I didn't flinch. I composed a single, measured text to my parents. I've provided 30 days notice as required. Their basic items are outside. They're welcome to stay with you in the meantime. I need space and won't be accepting calls then, for the sake of my sanity, I blocked every number. The guilt tripping would no doubt continue, but not on my phone. That evening, I peeked through the blinds as Vanessa and Trevor pulled into the driveway. Their expressions morphed from confusion to fury as their keys failed in the locks. Trevor began pounding on the door, shouting my name, while Vanessa found the boxes and unfolded the notice. Her face twisted into something almost unrecognizable: rage, disbelief, entitlement. They snapped photos. Probably to build a fake narrative. I didn't care. Eventually, after yelling into the void and making a scene for my security camera, they loaded the boxes into their car and sped off, no doubt heading to my parents' place. When silence finally returned, I exhaled. My home, for the first time in nearly a year, felt like mine again. The walls no longer carried the weight of resentment. The air felt lighter, my thoughts clearer. That night, I slept peacefully. Not because everything was fixed, but because I had finally drawn a line. Over the next few days, the backlash came in waves. With my immediate family blocked, extended relatives picked up the drama baton. Messages poured in from cousins and aunts I hadn't heard from in years. Seriously? You threw your sister out before Christmas? Texted Rachel, who hadn't invited me to her own wedding. Messages from extended relatives flooded in, each more judgmental than the last. Your parents are crushed. Is this really how you treat your own blood? Uncle Thomas wrote, echoing sentiments repeated across dozens of texts. Every one of them was rooted in Vanessa's carefully spun version of the story, a narrative that painted me as a cold, irrational woman who had exploded without cause. After enduring 2 straight days of this avalanche, I decided to lift the block on my parents' numbers. Perhaps, I thought, a level-headed discussion was still possible. I was wrong. Natalie, we're so disappointed, my mother snapped the moment I answered. Vanessa and Trevor are staying here now. She's been in tears for 2 days. How could you do this to your sister? I took a deep breath. Did she tell you why I asked them to move out? She said you got worked up over a little celebration and overreacted, she answered matter-of-factly. People throw parties. That's not a reason to throw your sibling out. That wasn't just any party, I reminded her. It was a gathering to celebrate a trip I was deliberately excluded from. A trip you all conspired to keep secret for months. That's unrelated, she argued. Besides, they've been decent tenants otherwise. I nearly laughed. Decent? They've missed multiple rent payments. Trevor spilled wine on my carpet and refused to clean it. They invaded my private space. That night was just the final spark. Well, she huffed, your father and I believe you're being impossible. Our vacation had to be delayed because of all the drama you created. So that was the real concern, not the fractured bond between daughters, but the inconvenience of a rescheduled holiday. I'm sorry your trip is postponed, I said, with zero sincerity. But my choice is final. They have until mid-January to remove their belongings and make other arrangements. And what about Christmas? She demanded, voice sharp with disapproval. Planning to sulk alone out of spite? I hadn't made up my mind until that second. Yes. I will be spending Christmas solo. I need time to reevaluate what family even means. When the call ended, I felt a strange blend of emptiness and liberation. This would be my first Christmas without the usual family routine. Part of me grieved that. But another part, one that had been buried under years of guilt and obligation, felt a strange kind of relief. The following afternoon brought an unexpected call from Grace, my cousin, the same one Vanessa had gossiped to at the party. Natalie, I just wanted to check on you, she said softly. I've heard all sorts of things from Aunt Eleanor and Vanessa, but I thought I'd come straight to the source. Her sincerity moved me. I gave her the abridged version, how I was shut out of the trip, lied to for weeks, then ambushed in my own home. I had no idea, Grace murmured. At the gathering, Vanessa told everyone you couldn't come because of work. Then she went around saying you're controlling and act superior because of your career. She said that about me to everyone? I asked, stunned. She did, Grace admitted. But I didn't buy it. That's why I reached out. Her honesty was a balm. After days of being vilified, hearing someone acknowledge the truth brought real comfort. Thank you, I said sincerely. That means more than you know. For what it's worth, Grace added, I think you made the right call. What they did was underhanded. You deserved better. That conversation gave me the strength to finally open up to people at work. I'd always kept my private life separate from my professional circle, but something told me it was time. To my surprise, the support was overwhelming. Family or not, nobody gets a pass to treat you that way, said Daniel, my team lead, shaking his head in disbelief. Barbara, our department coordinator who'd always mothered the office like her own brood, looked especially appalled. Sweetheart, I've been through more family drama than I care to admit. But let me tell you something, family is built on respect, not genetics. What they did wasn't love. It was manipulation. Despite the emotional exhaustion, their words reminded me that not all bonds are blood-tied, and not all blood ties deserve loyalty. As the holiday neared, I began to dread the actual day. Despite my firm stance, the thought of a solitary Christmas carried a heaviness I couldn't quite shake. Maya and Ethan had invited me to spend the day with his relatives, but I didn't want to intrude. Then, one quiet evening as I was placing ornaments on a miniature tree I'd bought just for myself, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Ethan stood on the step, holding a thick folder. "Hope it's okay I dropped by," he said. "I wanted to hand this to you personally." Inside were printed copies of local housing law, a formal letter responding to Trevor's threats, and a personalized note from Ethan himself confirming I had acted completely within my rights. "Maya told me he mentioned suing you," Ethan explained. "I wanted you to know that legally, you're protected." His gesture wasn't just legal, it was profoundly human. In that moment, I knew I wasn't navigating this storm alone. "They don't have a legal leg to stand on," Ethan assured me gently. His quiet confidence, paired with genuine kindness, pulled an unexpected swell of emotion from my chest. My throat tightened. "Thank you," I whispered, voice trembling. "You've done more than you know." "There's one last thing," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He handed me an envelope. "Maya and I were talking. You mentioned not wanting to intrude on our Christmas, but my folks always host an open house on Christmas Eve, neighbors, coworkers, friends. Nothing formal or private. We'd really like you to come." His invitation felt like a life preserver, tossed into stormy waters. For the first time in weeks, I wouldn't be staring down the holiday alone, pretending not to care. And I wouldn't be a burden, just another guest in a sea of familiar strangers. "I'd love that," I replied, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I meant it. A real, unforced smile touched my lips. As the holiday neared, the gap between my found family and the one I was born into became glaringly wide. My friends offered encouragement, support, and respect. Meanwhile, the people I had spent years sacrificing for responded with pressure, manipulation, and silence, until they didn't. Exactly a week before Christmas, I was buried in an urgent deadline at the office when my desk phone buzzed. "Natalie," said Louise, the receptionist, "there are 4 people in the lobby asking to speak with you. They say it's urgent and that they're your family." Every muscle in my body tensed. Did they leave names? Yes. A woman named Eleanor, a man named Robert, and a couple, Vanessa and Trevor. They had shown up at my job. My sanctuary. The one place they hadn't already contaminated. "Tell them I'm unavailable and in a meeting. And Louise, if they won't leave, please involve security." "Absolutely," she said without hesitation. 10 minutes later, my cell phone buzzed to life like a beehive. I ignored the flood of notifications until I caught sight of Vanessa's name. Curiosity got the better of me. "You couldn't even come down? We drove all the way here to make peace, and you hide behind your office door? Mom's in the car crying. Now. Hope you're satisfied." I turned the device off and shoved it into a drawer. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to guilt me into submission. That night, a new tactic arrived via email. The subject line read, "Family Intervention." My mother's message was overflowing with condescension masked as concern. She explained that the family was deeply worried about my mental and emotional condition, suggesting my erratic choices were likely caused by job-related stress or depression. They wanted me to attend group therapy to heal before things spiral further. It wasn't concern. It was gaslighting, plain and sharp. They weren't afraid for me, they feared losing control. I deleted the email without a second thought, and informed building security that my relatives might attempt another stunt. They promised to remain vigilant. 2 days later, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Natalie, please don't hang up. It's Trevor. What do you want?" My voice was flat, all emotion drained. "Things have escalated. Vanessa and I talked, and, well, we want to fix this. We value having you in our lives." "Interesting. Because a week ago, you were threatening legal action." "That was impulsive," he claimed, his tone suddenly sugar-coated. "We were shocked. Upset. But we've had time to reflect. It's the holidays. Family matters most." His delivery felt rehearsed, like someone trying too hard to sound conciliatory. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked coolly. "We're hoping we can meet in person. Maybe talk things over and renegotiate our living situation. The terms are crystal clear in the notice," I replied. "You have until January 15th to vacate and collect what's left." Trevor hesitated. Then he dropped a bombshell. "There's more. Vanessa's expecting." The words hit me like ice water down my spine. "Pregnant?" I echoed. "Since when?" "She found out a few weeks ago. We were going to announce it during the Colorado trip. It's why we're desperate for stability. Right now." "And you waited until now to tell me?" I asked, suspicion growing. We were scared. But now that you know, maybe you'll understand. You wouldn't put your sister on the street when she's carrying a child, would you? The timing was too convenient. If she'd truly known for weeks, why not use that information sooner? It felt calculated, another ploy to manipulate. Congratulations. To both of you, I said without inflection. But the situation hasn't changed. You have income. You have savings. My parents seem more than willing to take you in. My decision remains. His courteous tone cracked. You're unbelievable, he snapped. Your own sister is pregnant, and you couldn't care less. Everyone warned us, you're cold. He hung up, leaving dead air and a lingering chill behind. I immediately rang Maya. She answered on the first ring. You will not believe this, I said. Now they're claiming Vanessa is pregnant. Do you think it's true? Maya asked. Concern clear in her voice. I'm not sure, I confessed, slumping onto the couch. It could be true, but the timing just seems calculated. Even if she is, Maya said firmly, it doesn't excuse everything else. You're not punishing her for being pregnant, you're protecting your peace after months of being mistreated. She was right. Of course I'd support Vanessa if she truly was expecting, but that didn't mean allowing her and Trevor to continue abusing my space and kindness. Motherhood didn't wipe away what they'd done. The following morning, my phone buzzed with a notification from social media. Against my better instincts, I checked it, and immediately felt the blood drain from my face. Vanessa had gone public with the news. A dramatic photo of her holding a tiny pair of baby shoes was accompanied by a caption laced with emotional manipulation, thrown out of my home while expecting. Heartbroken that my own sister would do this, especially during the holidays. The post exploded with sympathy. Comments flooded in, outraged relatives, old friends, even distant acquaintances chiming in with opinions formed solely from her twisted version of events. I scrolled in disbelief, recognizing names of people I once considered allies now parroting her narrative. I wanted to scream. I wanted to defend myself. But I knew better than to get pulled into an online spectacle. Social media wouldn't offer justice, it would only fuel the chaos. Instead, I redirected my energy. I immersed myself in preparing for Christmas, surrounding myself with people who had proven their loyalty. People who respected my boundaries and didn't demand I sacrifice my well-being to preserve their comfort. Then came the next blow. 3 days before Christmas, I opened my mailbox to find a letter with a law firm's logo. My stomach knotted. Inside was a cease and desist notice, accusing me of harassment and unlawful eviction, even though Ethan had assured me I'd followed procedure. Seeing legal jargon laid out in formal typeface made my chest tighten with anxiety. I scanned it twice before forwarding it to him with shaking hands. He called me immediately. This is intimidation, he said, voice calm and steady. They're hoping this scares you into backing down. But there's no substance here. You followed every legal step. Are you sure? 100%. You waited until they were out, you provided access to their belongings, and you gave written notice. They're bluffing. His reassurance helped, but my nerves remained frayed. I hadn't slept through the night in days. Every message notification made my heart race. Every knock at the door sent a jolt through my spine. The day before Christmas Eve, I received another voicemail, this time from my mother. Her voice was soft, carefully measured, a stark contrast to the previous angry demands. Natalie, it's Mom. I know you're upset. Maybe we didn't handle everything perfectly, but it's Christmas. Vanessa is carrying your niece or nephew. Can't we put this behind us, just for one day? Join us for dinner. You can bring Maya if that makes you more comfortable. Just don't spend Christmas alone. Please. For a fleeting moment, I imagined saying yes. A festive evening filled with warmth, laughter, maybe even reconciliation. But the fantasy evaporated as quickly as it appeared. Nothing had changed. The lies, the manipulation, the exclusion, they were just using new tactics now that guilt and threats had failed. My family hadn't reached out to make amends, they'd reached out to control the story. Again. I deleted the voicemail and refocused on my own plans. I would be spending Christmas differently this year, with people who chose me, who respected me. It might not be traditional, but it would be real. On Christmas Eve, a gentle snow fell outside, layering the neighborhood in white. I lit candles, baked cookies to bring to Ethan's parents' open house, and wrapped a few gifts for Maya and her boyfriend. Though my heart still felt heavy, it also felt lighter than it had in months. As I sealed the last container of gingerbread cookies, the doorbell rang. For a split second, panic surged. I peered through the peephole, expecting another ambush, but standing on my porch wasn't my mother. It wasn't Vanessa. It was Aunt Catherine, my mother's older sister, holding a festive gift bag in gloved hands and smiling kindly. Hi sweetheart, she said as I opened the door. I hope I'm not imposing. I just wanted to check on you. I blinked in surprise. We hadn't been close, not really. She lived in another state and rarely visited except for weddings or holidays. No, of course not. Please, come in. Inside, I poured her a cup of coffee and offered her one of the cookies. She accepted both with warmth. I've heard quite a bit about what's been happening, she said carefully, settling into a chair. Mostly from your mother, but I figured I should hear your side before jumping to conclusions. Her presence felt like a balm. For the first time in weeks, a member of my biological family wanted to hear my truth instead of assuming the worst. I appreciate that, I said quietly. Really, I do. For the third time that month, I found myself recounting the painful chain of events, how I'd been excluded from the family trip, how Vanessa and Trevor had disrespected my boundaries for months, and how I finally decided to reclaim my space and dignity. As I finished, Aunt Catherine didn't look shocked. Instead, she sighed, her eyes distant with memory. Your mother pulled similar stunts when we were young, she said softly. Not the same context, of course, but the exclusion? The favoritism? Oh, I know that feeling well. I blinked, caught off guard. You do? She nodded slowly. Eleanor was always the golden child. Our parents doted on her, and she learned early on that she could manipulate her way into whatever she wanted. I was often left behind, treated as the afterthought. It drove a wedge between us that never fully healed. Hearing this was like unlocking a puzzle I didn't even know existed. The tension between my mother and me had always felt personal, directed only at me. But now I saw it for what it was, an old pattern repeating itself through generations. She's repeating the same cycle with Vanessa, I murmured. She is, Aunt Catherine confirmed. And it's not your fault. Some of us know exactly what that feels like, to be cast aside while someone else is placed on a pedestal. Her words wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly understood. By someone in my bloodline. I can't tell you how much it means that you came, I said, my voice catching in my throat. She smiled gently and held out the gift bag she'd brought. I also wanted to give you this. Inside was a delicate ornament, hand-painted with the year. The design was simple, yet deeply personal. I started a tradition when my children were born, she explained. Each year, a new ornament to mark the season. I thought you might like to start some new traditions of your own. Tears welled in my eyes as I clutched the small keepsake. This gesture, so thoughtful, so genuine, was more meaningful than any elaborate gift I'd ever received. Here was someone who saw me, who respected my choices, and who didn't try to manipulate me with guilt. After she left, I placed the ornament on the small Christmas tree I had decorated in my living room. It gleamed gently among the twinkling lights, a quiet symbol of change, of hope. Later that evening, I made my way to the open house at Ethan's parents' home. The warmth hit me the moment I stepped inside, not just the heat from the fireplace, but the emotional warmth of a space free from expectation or judgment. Laughter echoed through the rooms, and the smell of spiced cider filled the air. Judith, Ethan's mother, greeted me with open arms. So nice to finally meet you, Natalie, she said, wrapping me in a hug that didn't feel forced. Maya's told us wonderful things. We're thrilled you could make it. I was struck by the sincerity in her voice. There were no ulterior motives, no probing questions, no emotional landmines, just hospitality and acceptance. Throughout the night, I chatted with their guests, neighbors, friends, distant cousins. Conversations ranged from silly holiday traditions to books we'd read that year. Not once did anyone bring up family conflict or pressure me to explain my situation. Maya stayed by my side, seamlessly including me in every interaction. At one point, during a quiet break on the back patio, she leaned in and asked, "You doing okay?" I nodded, breathing in the crisp winter air. Better than I thought I would. It's grounding. Being here with people who don't expect anything from me. She smiled knowingly. You said your aunt visited and gave you that ornament, right? Yeah. It was really kind of her. Maya gazed out at the snow-covered trees. You know, sometimes the people we choose end up being more of a family than the ones we're born into. That thought struck a chord deep inside me. All evening I'd been surrounded by compassion, by people who treated me with dignity and care. I wasn't walking on eggshells or playing a part. I was just me. And it was enough. Christmas Day was peaceful in a way I hadn't anticipated. Maya and Ethan had invited me to their holiday dinner, and while I appreciated the gesture, I chose to spend the day alone, not out of sadness, but out of intention. I wanted to reflect, to rest, to begin carving out what holidays might look like going forward on my terms. On Christmas morning, I spent a few quiet hours catching up with old college friends over video calls. They were scattered across different cities, each with their own holiday plans, yet they all took time to listen as I briefly shared what had been happening with my family. Their messages of encouragement, free from judgment, reminded me that support doesn't always come from the people you're related to. It often arrives from those who choose to care. Later in the day, I made an intentional decision to step away from any lingering holiday sadness. I headed to a nearby community center and volunteered to serve holiday meals. Immersing myself in something unfamiliar gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. Interacting with strangers, hearing snippets of their lives, laughing over shared stories while dishing out food, it was grounding. Instead of feeling adrift without the traditions I once clung to, I felt centered, surrounded by warmth from unexpected places. As I drove back that evening, the quiet streets glimmering with festive lights, I realized something profound. Though my biological family was absent, I hadn't experienced a single moment of true loneliness. If anything, I felt more grounded, more whole, more attuned to who I was becoming. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed quietly, until an unexpected knock at the door shifted everything again. It was my father. Alone. His face looked worn, as if the weight of weeks had finally settled on his shoulders. "Could we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than I remembered it ever being. I paused, uncertain, then stepped aside and let him in. We sat opposite one another, the silence stretching out awkwardly between us. "I owe you an apology," he began. "I should have spoken up when all of this began. I should have insisted you be part of the Colorado trip." His words stunned me. My father had always been the quiet one, deferring to my mother's opinions, rarely inserting himself into disputes. "Why didn't you?" I asked, more curious than angry. He exhaled, his shoulders sagging. "Because it's easier to agree with them. Your mother and Vanessa, when they decide on something, they steamroll everyone. But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't excuse how I let them treat you." The admission was raw. For the first time, I saw him not just as my parent, but as a man who had struggled with his own patterns of avoidance. I appreciated that he'd come alone, without the chaos of others shaping the conversation. "I won't pretend everything will magically change overnight," he continued. "They're still furious about being locked out. But I want you to know I see why you did it. And I don't hold it against you. It wasn't a complete healing of old wounds, but it was a beginning." He saw me. He acknowledged the hurt. That alone was more than I had expected. In the following days, Vanessa and Trevor finalized their move. They located an apartment and arranged to pick up what remained of their belongings. They didn't reach out personally. Instead, my father acted as the middleman, organizing the pickup, coordinating times, managing everything without forcing us into direct contact. That distance was exactly what I needed. By mid-January, every trace of them was gone. The house, for the first time in a year, felt entirely mine. I spent a weekend scrubbing every corner, rearranging furniture, even repainting a wall or two. There was something deeply healing in reclaiming the space. Every small change, every shift in decor, whispered, "You belong here." During that time, I also took Maya's advice and scheduled my first session with a therapist. Dr. Hamilton was calm, perceptive, and immediately created an environment where I felt safe unpacking everything: my family dynamics, the years of overlooked grievances, the guilt that lingered even after setting clear boundaries. "Family ties don't entitle people to mistreat you," she said during one session. "Blood isn't a hall pass for cruelty." With her guidance, I began working on something she called a relationship blueprint, a personalized framework defining which behaviors I'd no longer tolerate, how I'd respond to violations, and the consequences for anyone who tried to breach my emotional safety again. It felt empowering, like drawing a map toward self-preservation. As winter faded into spring, I settled into a healthier rhythm. My father and I spoke more often, our conversations cautious but meaningful. My mother and I exchanged brief check-ins that danced around anything deeper. Vanessa remained distant, though civil, and yes, she was, in fact, expecting. Her due date was set for the summer. Life didn't return to how it once was. It became something entirely new. And for the first time in years, that change didn't scare me. The dynamics within my family had undergone an undeniable transformation, possibly one that would never be reversed. I was no longer the agreeable daughter who tolerated mistreatment to keep the peace. That version of me was gone. In her place stood someone self-assured, clear about her boundaries, and unwilling to be diminished to preserve anyone else's comfort. Some relatives still saw me through Vanessa's distorted lens, a caricature of selfishness and cold resolve. But I had stopped chasing validation from people committed to misunderstanding me. Their opinions, shaped by hearsay and half-truths, were no longer my responsibility. All I could control was my own behavior and the way I chose to respond. Meanwhile, something far more meaningful had taken root. My definition of family had broadened. It now included Maya and Ethan, who had stood by me when others turned away. It extended to coworkers who became close friends after I finally let them in, and to neighbors who became regular guests at weekend dinners and backyard gatherings. Aunt Catherine, once a distant relative, now felt more like a maternal presence than my own mother ever had. her thoughtful messages and surprise phone calls offering quiet encouragement exactly when I needed it most. Half a year after the holiday upheaval, I hosted a summer dinner in my home. The same house that had once echoed with tension and unspoken resentment now buzzed with laughter and warmth. Around my dining table sat people who respected my space, celebrated my growth, and made no demands on me beyond authenticity. As I passed dishes and refilled glasses, I paused to take in the moment. This was the kind of connection I had longed for, real, reciprocal, and grounded in mutual care of being cast aside by those I once looked up to had been brutal. But through that heartache, I had carved a new reality for myself, one built not on guilt or fear, but on the foundations of dignity and love freely offered. I finally understood that belonging wasn't about shared genetics or obligatory traditions. It was about being seen, heard, and valued for who you truly are. That evening, once the last guest had left and the dishes were soaking in the sink, I stood quietly in my kitchen, overwhelmed not with sadness, but gratitude. I had found something. Many people spend their lives chasing peace. Not because the people around me had changed, but because I had. Growth doesn't come without pain. Sometimes, it takes losing the approval of those you love most to finally discover your own voice. I had learned that saying no more wasn't cruel, it was necessary. In doing so, I created space for something better. Have you ever had to make a hard choice to protect your emotional well-being, even when it meant standing alone? How did it reshape your relationships? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. If my journey resonated with you, even in a small way, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories about resilience, boundaries, and rediscovering self-worth. And if someone you know is struggling to find their voice, share this video. They might need the reminder that courage sometimes means walking away from what's familiar and choosing what's healthy instead. Thank you for spending time with me today. And always remember, family is defined not by blood, but by the love and respect we give and receive.